Hey guys, Juan here. In today's video, we're going to talk about the iRobot Roomba 670. This bad boy right here and what it's been like with this vacuum 1 year later. So I've done a few videos on this robot vacuum cleaner already, and it has been a very good vacuum for me. It's done a very good job at cleaning our carpets, keeping up on the weekly chore that it has to do. But majority of the time that I have owned it, it has done very, very well for me. So I'm going to talk about some of the specifics on what this thing has done good and what this thing has maybe not done so good that it could possibly improve on. So let's get into that. Now, from the time that I bought this vacuum to this time right now, we have switched houses, which has been a kind of a good experience with this vacuum to see how it translates with different rooms. Now, in our old house, we did have big spacious rooms, so the vacuum was able to vacuum around the whole floor and do a very good job because there was a big room so it wouldn't get hung up. But now we're in a kind of a smaller space, so I was interested to see how this thing was going to perform in more tight niched areas, and it has done good. Okay, so it gets stuck in between maybe some of the legs that we have in our chairs, like it'll bat back and forth between a leg. It'll take it a little bit before it finally works itself out. But what we have here in this particular space here is a carpet and then a hardwood transition. And I know a lot of people had wondered what that was like when it was on a hard floor. Would it transition over into carpet very easily? And yes, it does. They make these vacuums pretty powerful, the motors in them, so that they're able to spin, the wheels spin very well, and they do transition from a hardwood floor into a vacuum pretty easily. Now, I have 2 dogs and a cat, so we have 3 animals in this house. If you're like me, you might have a few animals that shed, and we do have a dog that sheds quite a bit. So this vacuum does pick up the hair pretty good, but it does get clogged pretty rapidly. So that brush roller that's on the inside, the only thing that I would probably change, and if I upgrade to another robot vacuum, is that instead of getting a robot vacuum that had those brushes on the roller, I would probably go with one that has the rubber brush. And I'm actually going to be doing a review video on a Roomba vacuum cleaner that does have that rubber brush that I'm talking about. They don't get clogged as fast, they don't get clogged as much. Now, it would be interesting if Roomba did offer different types of rollers for the specific model of vacuum that you did have. That would be pretty nice, because then that way you wouldn't have to go buy a whole complete different model. You could just change out the brushes. So maybe Roomba, if you're watching this, that might be something that you could do. So my biggest complaint with it is that it does collect a lot of hair and inside that roller. And I hate cleaning out that hair. That's like one of the least things that I like to do. Now, a little tip for cleaning out that brush is that sometimes we've had to take some scissors and cut some of the hair to get out of there, because it does get pretty stuck. And it's pretty hard to pull out. But I took my other vacuum, a handheld vacuum that I had, to a guy who repairs vacuums, and I watched how he cleaned it. He took me in the back. And so if you are somebody, maybe your husband or somebody that has a bench grinder, he took that roller and just put it right on the bench grinder and cleaned the whole roller that way. And I guess that's a easy way that you could clean one of these brush rollers on these vacuums here. Now, one of the things that has impressed me with this Roomba is how well the sensors can detect what's around it. So for example, this particular new space that we're living in does have stairs. And so when it gets to the edge of the stairs, the sensors detect that there's a drop off there, and it won't fall off. It knows where to stop. It stops pretty well. And then it turns around the other way and keeps on going. So the sensors on these things are very, very good. And then also, most recently, whenever we put up our Christmas tree, because it is December at the time of making this video, the tree skirt that's at the bottom of the Christmas tree, I had wondered if the Roomba would be able to sense that there's a tree skirt there, because if it does transition from a carpet to a hardwood, it goes right over it. So I wondered if it would climb on top of the Christmas tree skirt and get stuck. but it hadn't. It would stop right at the Christmas tree skirt. It did touch it a little bit, but then it went around it. So yeah, another good example of how well these things perform. Now, I know this particular Roomba is kind of more on the cheaper side of the spectrum of models that iRobot sells. Some of them have self-cleaning where they'll dock themselves and then empty themselves out. This one doesn't do that. But I think for the price, man, that's a lot of extra hundreds of dollars to have that self-cleaning feature when really you could just empty out the cartridge, dump it out, and then put it back in. And when you are emptying out the cartridge, it's not hard to do. I mean, sometimes whenever you're emptying out a container for a vacuum cleaner, you gotta shake the thing and get your hand in there and pull out the hair and the dirt and get all dirty. These things here, the cartridge, the way that they are made is that it's a couple simple shakes and they empty out pretty easily. So it's not hard to do. Just don't be lazy. Empty it out. Save the money. Now, after using this thing for a year, something else that I've noticed I kind of wish that it would improve on is when you put it into a room, it does do all the zigzags, it doesn't vacuum in straight line. But there have been a few times where I've seen some particular spots that it missed. A lot of times if you're running this thing for a good length of time, it's gonna hit majority of your floor, but if you're only running it for a short amount of time, it's not gonna hit full floor print of the floor, so keep that in mind. So in this year that we have owned it, I have not broke out my regular vacuum very often. Now there have been a few times whenever we've had like some gatherings or something that I needed to get a good thorough cleaning that we broke out our old vacuum, but this one has definitely supplemented our vacuuming chore and done well on its own. Also through the year, there has been a couple times, twice, that I've had to actually clean these little metal sensors right here. Because when this thing would dock itself, these were dirty on both ends. I would have to take and rub it because it does collect a little bit of dirt on there. And when it does, and it's not getting a good connection to the base, therefore it's not charging properly. So there was a few times that it docked itself. I thought that it was charging, and then the next time that I would go to use it, it had a dead battery. So come to find out, I had to clean these sensors so that way it could get a good connection, and then it'll charge your Roomba back up. Also, in the course of the year of owning this thing, there was a few times that this bracket here come unhinged a little bit and it was a little bit crooked. Now that's only happened, I think, twice, as a matter of fact. Whenever you pop it in, one end would come up, the other end would be flat. Therefore, whenever it was vacuuming, it was kind of rocking like that. And so you could hear it, you could hear the difference of what it was like. And then eventually Roomba sent me a notification saying that something needed to be looked at. I can't remember the exact terminology that they used, but it was something that it identified exactly what it was. Therefore, you were able to get your robot vacuum and fix it and start cleaning again. And also talking about the app, it has been very good at being able to notify you whenever your Roomba maybe gets stuck, or maybe if it gets hung up like on an extension cord or some type of cord or something that you have on your floor. It's done a very good job at telling you whenever it stops. Like for example, I had it get stuck on a cord that we had underneath our bed, and it sent me a notification saying that Roomba was stuck on a cliff, is what it said. So it does a very good job at notifying you. After your robot vacuum is done performing and cleaning in a room, it will send you a notification saying that it completed its job. So that way you know when it's done, if you need to take and move it to another room, or if you want to put it back on the charger if it doesn't dock itself. Another great thing that it has done over the course of a year is that whenever it does get low on battery, it'll dock itself, and it knows when it's in trouble or that it's getting ready to power down. So it will look for the dock, and it will dock itself. There have been a few times where it didn't quite make it, and so it'd be dead somewhere in the middle of the room. But yeah, that's a pretty good feature that they installed in these robot vacuums, that they can sense and dock themselves whenever they're low on power. One little hang up that I did have over the course of the year is that when we did move houses and we went from one Wi-Fi connection to another, because when I moved, I changed my router up. It didn't recognize the new Wi-Fi, of course, because it was still set up on the old Wi-Fi. So I had to dive into the app and change the Wi-Fi, and therefore it messed up some of the settings. For example, I named this robot vacuum, I named it Sheila. And in case you didn't know, that is something that you can do on these robot vacuums, is that you can change the name so that way you're not calling it Roomba. You can change it to a special name like Sheila, Helen, or whatever it is that you decide to name it. But once I got into the settings on the app, I had to go through and kind of remove the device from the app and then reinstall it on there. And in the app, it did guide me through all the proper steps on how to do that. So it wasn't real difficult, but it was a little bit of a hang up that I had whenever I switched Wi-Fi networks. Now here is another little tip. When you go to replace a filter, and I have not done it actually in this whole year that I've had it, I've just kind of cleaned the filter. But whenever you do go to replace it, you have two different options. You can either buy the Roomba name brand filter and replace it with that, or a buddy of mine had told me that he bought a knockoff brand that's a little bit cheaper, and those work just as well. So it's up to you if you want to go name brand and make sure, or if you want to take a risk, maybe buy a little knockoff brand filter to save a little bit of money. I'm all about saving money, so I don't know. I'll have to keep you in the loop on whatever I decide to do whenever I replace this filter. Now, some of the questions I have been asked in some of my other videos on this vacuum is, when it does bang into some of the other furniture, does it actually bang into it, or does it sense that it's going to hit something and stop? And the answer is, it does touch other furniture. Now, it doesn't bang into it where it leaves a mark on your furniture legs or anything like that, but it does tap it. There's a sensor on the front. If you notice, whenever I push down, there's a little bit of give there. So whenever it runs into something, it pushes that, sensing that, oh, there's something in the way, and therefore it'll stop. It doesn't keep on going ramming into your furniture. So that little sensor like that notifies that there's something in the way, and it'll turn and go the opposite direction. And in case you're wondering, oh, when do I know if the battery's gonna die in this thing? There is a little battery icon on it right there that'll blink, tell you whenever it's low on battery. This right here shows you when it's connected to the Wi-Fi. So mine is connected. But another question that I was asked before is, do you need Wi-Fi in order to run this vacuum? And the answer is no. You don't need a Wi-Fi connection to run this robot vacuum. Maybe you don't have internet. Maybe you don't have a router or anything like that. You can still buy this vacuum. You can charge it up, and then you just have to hit the clean button right here, and then it'll run. Okay, without a Wi-Fi connection, it's not necessary. It's just one of those bells and whistles that this thing offers. One thing I probably will do in the future is I probably will get another robot vacuum, so that way I have one upstairs and I have one downstairs, because a particular house that we live in has 2 stories. So it'd be kind of a splurge, kind of a nice thing to be able to have one in both areas without having to carry another one down. And with the way that they keep making these things more affordable, because they were pretty high priced when they first came out, but they are making them more affordable so that if you did want to buy a second one, you could. Now, another thing that makes this vacuum a very good vacuum after 1 year of owning it is that Roomba is one of the only robot vacuum companies that have the dual brush system. Okay, so it uses one brush to kind of loosen up the dirt, and then it uses the other brush to pick it up. So having that dual system working like that, it does a very good job at cleaning your carpet. One of the other big claims to fame with this particular robot vacuum is that it has sensors to know high trafficked area, which I don't know how they do that. I don't know what kind of technology is in that, but it's supposed to be able to sense when it's in a high trafficked carpeted area, clean that area better. I don't know how it does that, but they built that kind of technology in these vacuums. Another nice little feature with this vacuum is that it measures at 9.2 centimeters tall. So that way it's got kind of a lower profile, and it's able to get underneath beds and a lot of furniture to be able to clean in tight, smaller spaces. Also, just a quick little reminder, I don't work for Roomba. I'm an average consumer. I'm your everyday dad that buys these electronics, and I don't work for them. This is not a sponsored video, so what I'm telling you is my opinion of what it's been like owning this thing. And if you do want to buy one of these vacuums, I will have a link down below of where you can get this thing. Now, I'm a very visual person, and I like to see things in action, so I'm going to show you guys what this robot looks like and what it can do when it's on, when it's cleaning, and while it's running. So let's see some of the footage on that. So in conclusion, I think that after 12 months of owning this robot vacuum, 1 year later, I think it has been a very good purchase for me. I think it would be a good purchase for you. So if you're on the fence on buying one, I say you can't go wrong. It'll help you save some time in vacuuming it. It'll help you eliminate, well, not totally eliminate, but it'll definitely help you with your chores. And it does a pretty good job at performing and cleaning your carpets. Well, thanks for watching this video, guys. If you liked it, make sure you throw a thumbs up on this. And if it was helpful to you, maybe subscribe to this channel. I do tech reviews all the time. I'd love to have you back in the next one. But thanks again for watching it. And until the next video, be creative.